I'll see you in the land of Mordor. Death awaits you at the border. Pass on through the gates of fun, destroy the ring of power and wonder.
Hey Lord of the Rings fans, welcome back to the channel. I'm Roman Isil. It's been a while since I've done a video. I spent a week touring the United States. Traveled down to Gettysburg National Battle Park, spent a whole day there. Then the next day we went over to the Antietam National Battle Park, as well as the Harper's Ferry. Toured the lower town there and also saw where John Brown got himself hung during his failed slave revolt. Colonel Robert E. Lee was the one who, and his troops were the one to crush his little rebellion. Then the next day we swung over to Washington, D.C., spent 2 days there, saw the White House where the British burned it, as well as the Washington Mall, the National Mall, which is pretty big. It's huge there. You know, you see it in movies, but you're not really prepared to see how big it actually is. The Washington Monument is pretty cool. Lincoln Monument is excellent. And just walking that, it takes forever to walk somewhere. And then we headed to one of the Smithsonian's, the aviation one, to see the Wright brothers plane before going into Virginia. And then heading home and did some War of 1812 stuff on the American side by Fort Niagara. So a lot of things we didn't see. This picture here you're seeing right now is the sunken lane or bloody lane of Antietam, where for several hours the Confederates and Union fought each other over this little dip in the lane, and the bodies were piled 3 high. It kind of looked like that at the end. Some reporter took a picture, or photographer took a picture of what was left. And you can see the bodies are just lying where they fell. Pretty horrific. Burnside's Bridge in Antietam, another place that was just totally pointless attack, but it took Burnside 3 hours before he finally figured out that there's an undefended ford like less than a mile away. But anyway, let's get on to this. So today we're going to be looking at Minas Ithil. This is the second and last of the city series in the first edition of Middle-earth role-playing. It is 8302 of the series and was released in 1991. I bought this when it came out from Imperial Hobbies. And I really liked the idea that they were going in this direction at the time. But anyway, let's go down to the table and check it out. All right, first thing to look at is the artwork. It's not Ags McBride, it's by David Martin. And it shows a Nazgul flying over the city at night. And the city looks pretty peaceful, so this is definitely not during the Minas Morgul period, but during the Gondorian period. And it could be just before they besieged the city. But I highly doubt that Nazgul would have been doing this at that time. They were still trying to be secretive, and they didn't want to tip off the Gondorians that something big was going to happen. So, not a big fan of this artwork. I am a fan of the artwork, but not a big fan of the setting. On the back, you just get a description of what it is and where it is. Nothing big. Now you do get a map of the city, and it comes in 2 sections. And it is big. It's a big map. Unfortunately, I could have did without this white border, especially on this end. I really didn't need that white border because it's going to stay there. And also, when they made this map, it doesn't connect just like that. You have 2 sections. You have to kind of match it up with. It overlaps. And because of that white border, it's never going to sit pretty. So again, a little bit of a fail with the map, though I do love the map design. And like how it is snail shaped and it goes around, you have to go around each section. Follow the road around each section like a spiral pattern until you get to the middle, like a snail shell. So looking on, we got inside the front cover, there's nothing. It's kind of a waste, I always thought. You got your table of contents. an introduction into the city and the city series. So I think they were planning to make more of these, but never got around to it, or they were leaving it for the 90s editions that we're going to do next. The temporal setting is 1640, but you can use this information all the way up until the fall of the city in 2002. Gives you a brief history of the city in the Second Age, the kin strife, the plague and its aftermath, and the fall of Minas Ithil, right up until the War of the Ring, and then King Elisar more or less has the city destroyed slowly but surely, and maybe they'll rebuild, who knows. Gives a tale of years, the Second Age, Third Age. Doesn't go into the Fourth Age because Tolkien was pretty ambiguous of what happens in the Fourth Age to Minas Ithil. It's probably destroyed, and they'll probably rebuild at some point when the land becomes clean again. So that goes into the lands, terrain, flora, the agriculture, wild plants, the fauna, the domestic fauna, the wild fauna, and the climate. With a climate chart, very important to have one of those. You want to know when it rains, when it snows, what not. The culture and lifestyle, the home life, customs, etiquette, dress, food, and drink. Now, the majority of people in Minas Ithil are going to be Dunedain or Lesser Dunedain, so they're going to follow the customs of the rest of Gondor, so nothing really new to go through. Spiritual life, art, and high culture. They kind of make this book. In this book, they kind of make the Gondorians here as more woke, kind of like what Seattle and San Francisco are to the rest of the United States, to like New York, as compared to New York. Kind of like a hippie lifestyle, communes, hippie lifestyle, arts. That's what they seem to make it into. Remember, these were Americans writing these books, so they kind of put their own influences on it. We have poetry, performing arts. So makes for an interesting read, but I don't think so, because Minas Ithil is on a border. It's a border town, nestled in the mountains of the shadow. I think it would be more rugged and not so lackadaisical in its approach to where it is. Then you have the people of Minas Ithil, the Gondorians, who view themselves as the heart and mind of Gondor, guardians of Elvish and Númenórean heritage that has dwindled in the hands of their more worldly counterparts on the coast and in Minas Ithil. That's plausible. There would be a high percentage of pure Dunedain in Minas Ithil. Then you have the noble houses, and he gives a description of several of them. 7 of them to be exact. 7 seems to be a mystical number in the middle of role-playing. Tolkien also mysticizes the 7. There are 7 rings of power, the dwarven ones. There are 7 stones, 7 stars. Then we have the greater houses, those that are wealthier and rose up from the ranks. You have guilds. Any medieval city will have guilds. I have to hold this book down because it doesn't fold very well. So you got carpenters, brewers, weavers, smiths, masons, actors, scholars, and librarians, obviously. You have the artist societies, the secret order of the froth blowers, which is a fraternal organization open to men over the age of 40 only. Mainly a night-long romp of drinking and infantile shenanigans, kind of like the stonecutters of The Simpsons idea. The cabal, which is like the petty thieves and stuff like that. Kind of like they're a thieves guild, but there's no formal one. Sisterhood of the Veil. So they take in users of magic, which is something Tolkien never really... Magic is not something that he has a lot of in his work. I think the word magic appears more in The Hobbit than it does anywhere else in Lord of the Rings. He uses sorcerers and sorcery and wizards more than magic itself. Unlike Terry Brooks, the Shannara series, which I love, but Terry Brooks uses the word magic so many times that you can play a drinking game out of it. We got other inhabitants, There will be other Gondorians who are mixed blood, like Northmen, mostly Northmen, the odd Danish and Haradrim blood. Commerce and industry. Minas Ithil is close to the main trading road to Minas Anora and Osgiliath, as well as from the south, the old Harad road that leads to Arondor. And they also be the Forlithian road too. Not to mention also to the border posts on the Gondorian border post on Mordor's border. Resources. The Morgul Vale has little in the way of mineral resources. Not that you really want to start tunneling into the mountains of shadow right now. Exports and trade. What is it export? What is it trade in? The value of money, markets, conventions of trade. All stuff that's interesting to read, but not... And you might get an idea of what's there. But then we go Power and Politics in 1640. This is a 1640 book. After the Great Plague, King Tarandor is on the throne of Gondor, and him and his wife don't get along the greatest. Tarandor and his wife Miriam were wed at a political convenience, and they respect and even like one another. There is no love between them. Supposedly the king loves a half-elven maid from Midheadland. The queen, deciding not to make much trouble, decided to take a more direct hand in her royal responsibility. She left for Minas Ithil, and she's now the regent, or the leading Minas Ithil. So there's a separation in the family. But what she thought she'd be able to sit there and look pretty and do nothing, but she came across a city that was rife with corruption. So she started rooting it out. Get rid of the fat, complacent steward and the greedy and devious stone warden. Remember, there's a seeing stone in Minas Ithil. Not only does it control a pass into Mordor, it also has a seeing stone, which is highly coveted by Sauron. So the queen has taken a more active role in governing. So we had a political hierarchy of the chart. You got the queen, the stone warden, the garrison guard, nobility, and the steward, who controls the justices, civil offices, council, university, and guilds. So the steward of Minas Ithil. This position was vacated by the apathetic and lazy Maloth, has been filled by Tuan Dor Branador. And it talks about his backstory and how he knows the queen and his responsibilities. The Argentir was also let go. Sir Mercano was dismissed for abuse of his office. The queen wanted a person she could trust implicitly in the tower, and she chose an old friend from Anorian named Luthien of House Anarion. So we got a chick in control of the Stone Wardens. I don't know how accurate that would be. Not that I'm against women or anything. Women in positions of power, but Gondorians might not see that as a good thing. Then you have a council. 21 members in the council. Seats are automatically given to the queen or the steward. You have the nobility, who are probably on the seats of council, and the guilds, who have their own council members, or patrons anyway. The university mentions them. Enemies of the queen and the city. So obviously you have orcs in the mountains of shadow. They're probably growing in strength as the years go on. Manish kingdoms. The lords of Umbar. The black Numenorians of Umbar whisper false promises to the leaders of the Haradrim. Obviously the corsairs of Umbar, who were once Gondorians, have now probably turned more towards the black Numenorians than to their ancient lineage, their ancient allegiance. And the Haradrim probably raid into Arondor right up until the borders of the Poros. The Manish tribes of the east pose no threat to the Morgul Vale, as the king keeps fairly strong garrisons in southern Rovania. So no problems with them yet. Though obviously by the 18th century they do become more of a problem. Until there's open war in the 19th century. The Spider Cult, which is a cult of Sauronic influence living within the city walls. So obviously there's going to be a bunch of them. And they would be the enemy within. So politics in Minas Ithil. Ithilien is a frontier. It's right against Mordor, so and it falls eventually. relations with the rest of Gondor. They consider themselves a land apart. Well, they kind of are, because they're on the other side of the Anduin. Everything else is on the western side. The province of Dor Rhunin is slowly being abandoned, and Calenarden is slowly being abandoned as well. It's decreasing in population. Internal politics, obviously the struggle with the Queen now in control, with a female Stone Warden and a new Steward. Things are not going to be hunky-dory. The old way of things has been shaken up. Now, Section 8, we get the Gondorian garrison. This is what I love. It does strip down the garrison. The military hierarchy chart, the king, the Artagan, or Artargan, Requayan, Atargan, Otari, and the soldiers. There's also a small contingent of the Queen's Rangers, which is kind of nice. The British had their own Queen's Rangers. There was also Rogers Rangers and stuff like that. That was always cool. Weapons and tactics. So this describes the whole organization and the role of the garrison. I wish they'd gone a step further and talked about the garrison of Forlithian and Harlithian. This would have made a really... There's so many ways they could have made this book much better. They could have added Harlithian and Forlithian into it as campaign books, and then put Minas Ithil attached to it, or the Minas Ithil minus Morgul thing. City overview, where it sits. Talks about the walls, how they're built, the Twilight Gates, which I think the Twilight Gates are these ones over here. Now, the stream comes out one way and goes around the other. The map looks like a huge snail shell, is what it reminds me of. Peter Jackson made Minas Ithil or Minas Morgul into more like a ship design, but had too many spikes and stuff like that, like jutting out in his design. This one looks like it's supposed to be the Tower of the Moon. It's more moon-shaped, round. It'd be a different design than Minas Anar. Alright, so they go through the walls, the Twilight Gates, the Dawn Portal, which is probably a sally port. The Rivil Shrine, which is the stream. The Rivil flows out of the city through a hewn channel, so the stream starts down here and then goes all the way in through here. By the time Minas Morgul, it's poisoned and poisons the Vale. You have flanking towers, the Tower of the Moon, which is the main part. The Tower of the Moon would be number 24 here. The quarters, you have the Queen's Quarters, the Quarter of Coins, the Quarter of Wells, and the Quarter of Shadow. Just 4 quarters. Streets, sewers, and public works. Nothing major there. Now, institutions and buildings. So you got the Queen's Quarters, the Tower of the Moon, the Queen's Palace, which is, I believe, number 5 is the Queen's Palace. The University, and a description of the Ithil Stone, which is nice. The Library, the Rin Paramithrin, I can never pronounce Tolkien words. The Rin Paramithmirith. The New Council Hall, I'm not going to even pronounce that. The Hospice, the Tirithos, the guard fortress, the Tirioth. My tongue's not working today. Tirithos is over here, number 12, and it makes sense that it'd be close to the Great Gates. Then you have some of the noble houses of Telegar, House of Marcano, which is the former Stone Warden, Celebrin, which is the Quarter of Coins, the Black Swan Inn, which is a typical social gathering place. The marketplace talks about some people that might be there, merchants and stuff. The moneylender's house, the guild hall, weavers, a potter's shop, the Ethelrind, which are parks. You got the arena, which is right here, is 41, is the arena. I'm sure the Nazgul found some better ways for it. You got Gem House, an artist refuge, the theater, a herbalist shop he mentions, the Gwathrind, which is the poor district, the Golden Plough, which is more of a seedy kind of bar, a common tenement, a cooper's shop, And it goes into the Temple of the Web, the headquarters of the Spider Cult, where it is hidden in the poor district. Outside of the walls of the burial grounds, in a nook at the base of the mountains. I wonder if Sauron ever had barrow wights in these, because the Witch King used barrow spirits to inhabit the dead of the graves that Tyrone North had, and it makes me wonder if he did the same thing here, if there's any barrow wights. Definitely be a spooky place after the Minas Morgul period. Oh yeah, then we get buildings and notes. So you get the Queen's Quarter, the Court of the Coins. I'm not going to go through all these, it just takes too long to go through stuff. The Quarter of the Wells and the Quarter of Shadows. Minas Ithil and other times, you have the Kinstrife, which is probably a very interesting time for Minas Ithil. The people were more in favor of the rightful king, Eldakar, but Castamir basically took over the city and controlled the garrison. So it would be a very good time to go there. Definitely lots of intrigue. The Tower of Black Sorcery, so from 2050 to 3018, you have the Minas Morgul period. In the first part of the Minas Morgul period, you probably would be able to get in and do some stuff, but after probably within 100 years, that way is closed and you're not getting in unless no one's getting in, unless they're totally committed to Sauron. In the Fourth Age, they mention how the city of Minas Ithil was demolished and the stones of the tower were used to build the prince's new palace in Harlithian. The Palantir of Minas Ithil was never found, presumed missing in the fall of Barad-dûr. And they say a settlement sprang up on the banks of the Ithilduin. So a staging post. All right. Personalities, you have the Queen. It's good to be the Queen. God save the Queen. Then you have the Steward Tuon, who is an old guy, but he's someone she trusts. You have the garrison commander Andro, commander of the guard Ringmere, so there'd be a guard for her. Elfred, captain of the Queen's Rangers, who's a Northman. Dorias, the chief justice, and Sulinwi, the deputy steward. Then it goes into some of the nobility. Gives a whole list of those guys. Don't need to go through all of them. The guild masters, scholars and librarians, all their little backstories, the artists, and the enemies of the Queen. So Mala, former steward, he's kind of a non-entity, but he's not exactly helpful. Mercano, the former Stone Warden, he's part of the Spider Cult, as you'll find out. Not a good guy. You have the priest of the Spider Cult and the priestess of the Web. Talathorn, the arena master, kind of cool. Kolmoro. You get adventures into Minas Ithil, a glimpse in the Palantiri. So you want to send a party of guys to try and sneak their way into the stone tower and take a glimpse into a Palantir. Not exactly a great adventure, I don't think. Be better off trying to find the missing Master Stone would be better. You're better off going to the far north and trying to find the missing Palantir of Arthedain that died with the last king. But it gives you a task, the setting, allies and enemies. Hell, the Web of the Spider would love to help you. The cultist. And it goes, intrigue in the Eltharind. So talking about defaced works of art. Must be Stop Oil people. They're always trying to deface art. Another kind of dumb one. I never played any of these adventures. I did use the military tables for this. And some of the locations. So spiders and other vermin, this is the time you're going after the cultists, this is more of an interesting scenario. We never played it like this, but in this city, but this would be the one I would do if I was going to Minas Ithil. Some other low-level adventures you could do, medium level, and then some high level. Adapting the module, hits bonuses conversion chart. Then we go into layouts. This book is really big, which is why I'm not going through. There's lots of descriptions. It gives you a cross section of the wall, which I like. It also has the base, which slopes up. That's to stop That's to stop siege towers from getting too close. Though I do like this. You got the Twilight Gates over there. Love the designs. So the Fen Roman, the Dawn Portal, you see you have a ground level and a second level to that one. So that's more of a sally port than anything else. Cross section of the bastions, of the walls. Interesting concept. You have arrow slits up here. You have your top of your tower on 5. And then 4 is bow archer galleries, like firing galleries. So arrow slits. And then they also have 3 and 2 also have arrow slits, which I like. The Tower of the Moon, this one I really love. You have your first level, which is down here, going up to the second level, the third level, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th. And it gives a description of each level. Level 6 is the Chamber of the Palantir, and level 7 has the roof, which will have an observation thing. And then it gives a layout for the Queen's Palace. So I've used the tower layout, because you can use that tower layout for anything. And the Queen's Palace was interesting. You could transport this one into a section of Fornost, probably. It gives a description of the Queen's Palace before moving on to the university. The Tathron, which is another part of the university. And the university, I believe, is 6, 7, and 8. So I like how they have that. They have a Fellows Hall in the Queen's Quarter. It's even got a smoking hall. Sounds made for hobbits. The Rin Perimith. It's got a cellar. So Minas Ithil's library. This is number 9 on the chart. I'm going to find 9. So it's right here, this little hourglass thing. So it does give you numbers for all these, which is nice. That's an hour. Looks like an hourglass. Actually looks really cool. The government house. Comoros Hospice. So a hospital. You got the Tirithos. Looks almost like a Roman fortification. How it's laid out, almost. House Tellar, one of the main houses. Mercano House, so one of the bad guys, you want to go through his house. The Black Swan, which is your typical bar. The Moneylender's House. Weaver's Guild Hall. Potter's Shop. So so many layouts you could use in an adventure. The arena, so the shape of the arena. A gem house shaped like a gem. This one is number 32. Now I gotta find 32 in here. See the 40, 50s. 32 is, there's 30, 31, 33. 32 is right here, the gem house. The theater, which is 43. See if I can find that one in here. That looks like a theater right there. That's 59. Oh, it's right here, 43. Personally, I think this looks more like a theater too, an amphitheater. Huh. Herbalist Shop, which is 44. The Golden Plow, which is that dive bar. Typical tenements. Cooper's Shop. Temple of the Web, which is 56. So we got to find 56 on the map. It's 55. 56 is right here. So it's in the poor district in the tenement section. Actually, it's not far from the Tower of the Moon. You always think that the tenement section would be closer to the outer walls where it's less so it gives a description of that. The burial grounds, which I find are kind of cool. Tomb of the Stuarts, Noble Crypts, a guardhouse. So there is a guardhouse here to watch the tombs. It's got a common graveyard, aristocratic tombs. Again, I wonder what happened after the fall of Minas Ithil. Rian House, so it has a ballroom. That's good. Second, third floor. Carpenter's Guild Hall. Smith's Guild Hall. No real descriptions, just Anarian's Crown, which looks like another bar. Leatherworks, another Ranland's house. And that's it for the description, for all the buildings of note. A lot of them, a lot of layouts. Gotta love that. Then we go to the Master Military Table, one of my favorite things in all the world. Tells you that there are at least anywhere from 10 to 12 captains, or Araquan, 150 to 200 knights, Raquan, who will all be mounted. The sergeants, or Otari, there will be 75 to 100 of them, of which 10 to 15 will be mounted. And then 1,500 to 2,000 regular soldiers, of which 2 to 300 are mounted. And then there's 50 of the Queen's Rangers. So, sizable garrison. So it's kind of a small garrison, I think, for the size of the city. But in times of peace, that should be no problem. In times of war, I imagine there would be a city militia or city watch that would augment the forces. At least, how hard can it be to shoot a bow in a general direction of an orc host? The Queen and her deputies, the high nobility, so you got the master NPC tables, other Ithilians of note, NPCs for the adventures, general citizens, and then master encounter table, depending where you are. Selected readings, and then a bunch of loose pages for notes, which I found was kind of annoying. And that's it. So a lot of stuff to like in that one. Alright, so that was my look at Minas Ithil. As we take a look at the little round top in the backdrop there. What did I think of this book? I thought this was a great book. Lots of layouts. It gives a detail of the garrison of the time period, the 1640 time period, which I kind of like. You kind of get a basis of that for what it could be in the other eras. What I wish they'd done is I wish they made it a little bigger and added a section of what Minas Ithil would have looked like once it turned into Minas Morgul, or what was how many men were left in the city during the time of the siege. So what troops were still in the city when it was besieged, and what was the Witch King's army surrounding it, because the forces of Gondor couldn't break through to relieve the siege. So it must have been quite an army that the Witch King had. Once he did finally take the city and fortified himself within it, the Gondorians couldn't retake it, so it must have been the Witch King probably lost most of his forces, but had enough to defend the city against any counterattack. So it would be quite an interesting period. So I would like to have seen what Minas Ithil looked like when it became Minas Morgul. And its troops over the years, how many men, orcs, and whatnot were in the city. So I really do wish they had done that. The adventures in this one are kind of weak as always. It's more of there's more possibilities than there was in the Minas Tirith book as far as the adventures go. But I do enjoy it. I do like the fact that Iron Crown had gone in this direction. And they were constantly looking at other things to release. I wish they had done it in a Skiliath book as well. Other city ones could have been Anonymous and Fornos. That's two modules together. Carn Doom could have been another one. They could have made a smaller Edoras Dunharrow book. Definitely a Pelagir and Dol Amroth would have been good city books. Umbar just Umbar itself. They already did a campaign book on Umbar, but they could have spruced it up better. Even a Barad-dûr would have been a really cool book to have. So those are the possibilities they could have done. So all you Miller role-playing fans, let me know what you guys think. Did you have this book? Did you play it? What city would you have liked them to go do next had they continued on with this train of thought? Was there any that I left out? And keep in mind that there is a second edition, the 90s edition, and there's also the campaign modules they did, like for Moria. But anyway, if you're new to the channel, subscribe, hit the bell, hit the like button. I'll continue putting out Middle-earth role-playing and Lord of the Rings strategy battle game, as well as anything else that comes to mind. And until next time, I'm Roman Daisel. I am out of here.